The summer sun bore down on Los Angeles, its relentless heat baking the city's sprawling streets and iconic skyline. Unbeknownst to most, this day would soon turn into one of the most harrowing in the city's history. Deep in the hills, a small campfire left unattended ignited dry brush, and within hours, flames roared through the canyons, devouring everything in their path. The Los Angeles Fire Department, LAFD, received the first distress call just before noon. As the flames advanced, the skies above the city darkened, transforming day into an eerie twilight. Ash rained down on neighborhoods miles away, and the acrid smell of smoke seeped into homes. Sirens wailed as fire engines rushed toward the inferno. Among the first responders was Captain Jacob Harris, a veteran firefighter with over 20 years of experience. Leading his team into the heart of the blaze, Jacob's mind raced with thoughts of the lives and homes at risk. He'd seen wildfires before, but something about this one felt different, more dangerous, more personal. Meanwhile, in a modest home not far from the affected area, Keanu Reeves sat reading the news on his tablet. The headline caught his eye: "Massive wildfire threatens Los Angeles suburbs." As he read on, a sinking feeling settled in his chest. Reeves had always felt a deep connection to the city that had given him so much, and he couldn't sit idly by while his community suffered. It did. Keanu immediately called his assistant, asking for information on how he could help. Within minutes, he was on the phone with local officials and charity organizations, offering not only a substantial donation to relief efforts, but also his personal involvement. "I'm not just sending a check," he told the fire chief. "Tell me where I'm needed." A community in chaos. In the hours that followed, evacuation orders were issued for thousands of residents. Families scrambled to gather what they could carry, loading pets, photo albums, and a few cherished belongings into their cars. Traffic jams clogged the escape routes as people fled the advancing firestorm. At an emergency shelter set up in a local high school gym, Keanu arrived unannounced. Dressed simply in jeans and a t-shirt, he blended in with the crowd, his presence going unnoticed at first. But as he moved from family to family, offering comforting words and helping distribute food and water, whispers began to spread. "Is that Keanu Reeves?" a young boy asked his mother, who was clutching a trembling chihuahua. "I think it is," she replied, her eyes widening. Keanu's humility shone through as he worked alongside volunteers, his focus solely on providing comfort to those in need. He helped set up cots, carried supplies, and even entertained children with stories and jokes to distract them from the fear and uncertainty surrounding them. The front lines. Back in the hills, Captain Harris and his team faced an uphill battle. The fire was relentless, consuming homes and threatening to jump containment lines. Exhausted but determined, the firefighters pressed on, knowing that failure wasn't an option. Just as they were beginning to lose hope, a convoy of civilian vehicles arrived, laden with supplies for the fire crews. Stepping out of one of the trucks was Keanu Reeves himself, carrying cases of water and energy bars. "Figured you guys could use a little backup," Keanu said, flashing his signature humble smile. Captain Harris raised an eyebrow, momentarily stunned. "Are you kidding me? You're Keanu Reeves?" "And you're the real heroes here," Keanu replied, handing over the supplies. For the next several hours, Keanu stayed with the firefighters, helping however he could. Whether it was handing out masks to protect against the thick smoke, or simply offering words of encouragement, his presence lifted the spirits of the weary crew. By the end of the night, the fire spread had slowed, but the battle was far from over. As Keanu prepared to return to the shelter, he made a promise to Captain Harris. "Whatever you need, I'm here. We're going to get through this together." Keanu Reeves awoke at dawn, the faint smell of smoke lingering in the air even miles away from the front lines. He hadn't slept much, his thoughts consumed by the stories he had heard from evacuees at the shelter. Families torn apart, homes lost, pets missing. Despite the chaos, there was something profoundly moving about the resilience he had witnessed. It reminded him why he felt so compelled to help. His phone buzzed with an update from Captain Harris. The fire had breached containment lines overnight. Several neighborhoods were now under immediate threat, and resources were stretched dangerously thin. Reeves knew he couldn't just sit on the sidelines. He grabbed a pair of sturdy boots and a fire-resistant jacket he'd borrowed from the shelter and headed out, this time determined to get even closer to the action. The firefighters struggled. The scene at the fire line was a stark contrast to the bustling shelter. Here the air was thick with smoke, making it difficult to breathe without a mask. The ground was hot to the touch, and the roar of the flames was deafening. Firefighters worked tirelessly, dousing flames with hoses, digging trenches, and battling exhaustion as the relentless heat bore down on them. Captain Harris spotted Reeves as soon as he arrived, stepping out of a dusty truck laden with supplies. "Keanu, I appreciate the help, but this is no place for a civilian," he said, his voice hoarse from shouting over the noise. "I'm not here to be a liability," Reeves replied, handing Harris a box of protective masks. "Tell me where I can be useful." Harris hesitated for a moment before nodding. "All right, but stay close and do exactly as I say." Reeves was quickly put to work assisting the support crew, ferrying water and equipment to the front lines. Despite the dangerous conditions, he remained calm and focused, earning the respect of everyone around him. As the day wore on, the fire continued to advance. One particularly dangerous flare-up threatened a nearby animal shelter that hadn't yet been evacuated. The firefighters were spread too thin to respond immediately, leaving the shelter's staff and animals at extreme risk. A race against time. When Reeves overheard the situation, he didn't hesitate. "We can't just leave them there," he said to Harris, determination in his eyes. "I don't have the men to spare," Harris replied grimly. "Then I'll go," Reeves said. "I can't fight fires, but I can help get those animals out." Harris looked at him incredulously. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," Reeves replied. Within minutes, Reeves and a small group of volunteers were on their way to the shelter. The drive was harrowing, with flames licking at the edges of the road and smoke reducing visibility to nearly zero. When they arrived, the shelter staff was in a state of panic, scrambling to load animals into crates as the fire crept closer. Reeves jumped into action, helping to carry dogs, cats, and even a terrified parrot to the waiting vehicles. His calm demeanor had a reassuring effect on everyone, and soon the last of the animals were safely loaded. Just as they were preparing to leave, a deafening crack echoed through the air. A massive tree had fallen, blocking their only escape route. The unexpected hero. Trapped with the fire closing in, the group faced a moment of sheer terror. But Reeves refused to give in to panic. Spotting an old fire road nearby, he led the group on foot, carrying a trembling Labrador in his arms. The trek was grueling, the heat and smoke making every step a challenge. Back at the main fire line, Captain Harris received word of the situation and immediately dispatched a rescue team. When they found Reeves and the volunteers, they were exhausted but safe. The animals still in their care. "You're insane," Harris said as Reeves climbed into the rescue vehicle. Maybe," Reeves replied with a tired smile. "But it was worth it." The story of Reeves' daring rescue spread quickly, becoming a beacon of hope in the midst of the disaster. For those who had lost everything, it was a reminder that even in the darkest times, acts of kindness could make a world of difference. The sun was setting over Los Angeles, casting an eerie orange glow through the thick blanket of smoke that covered the city. Despite the day's challenges, the morale at the command center was noticeably higher. The story of Keanu Reeves and his team rescuing the animals from the shelter had become the talk of the camp. For a city grappling with devastation, it was a moment of light, a tale of selflessness that gave hope to those on the front lines. But Reeves wasn't finished. That evening, while many firefighters rested in preparation for another grueling day, he was on the phone, rallying resources. From high-profile friends to local organizations, Reeves was determined to amplify the relief efforts. a community united. By dawn, trucks loaded with supplies began rolling into the staging area. Water, food, fire-resistant gear, and medical supplies. Everything the firefighters and evacuees needed had been organized and delivered through Reeves' outreach. He wasn't just leveraging his celebrity status. He was using it strategically to make an impact. Captain Harris approached him, his usual stern expression softened. "You've done more in a day than we could have hoped for in a week," he admitted. "I'm just doing my part," Reeves replied humbly. The firefighters weren't the only ones taking notice. News crews had started to arrive, drawn by reports of the Hollywood star working alongside first responders. While Reeves typically shied away from the limelight, he agreed to speak, using the platform to draw attention to the firefighters' heroic efforts and the needs of the displaced families. "Everyone has a role to play," he said during an interview. "These men and women are risking their lives every day. The least we can do is support them." A rescue mission like no other. Later that afternoon, a new challenge emerged. The fire had shifted direction, threatening a historic neighborhood filled with homes, businesses, and a community center that had become a makeshift shelter for evacuees. Evacuation orders were issued, but with traffic gridlocked and resources stretched thin, it was clear that not everyone would be able to get out in time. Reeves, now considered an honorary member of the team, was quick to volunteer. "If there are people who need help, I'm going," he told Harris. This time, Reeves partnered with Baron Trump, who had arrived earlier, to offer assistance. Despite his young age, Baron had shown remarkable composure and determination, rallying volunteers and organizing logistics at the shelter. Together, they formed a team to evacuate those who couldn't leave on their own. A race against the flames. As Reeves and Baron navigated the smoky streets, they encountered an elderly couple who had been unable to leave their home. The wife was bedridden, and the husband was too frail to lift her. Without hesitation, Reeves carried the woman to their vehicle, while Baron reassured the husband, helping him gather essentials before guiding him to safety. In another house, they found a single mother and her 2 children trapped in a backyard as flames encroached. Reeves calmed the panicked mother while Baron led the children to the car. Their teamwork was seamless, driven by a shared commitment to saving lives. But the most harrowing moment came when they reached the community center. Dozens of evacuees, including children and seniors, were still inside, their escape route blocked by fallen debris. As firefighters worked to clear the path, Reeves and Baron organized an impromptu evacuation plan, guiding people out through a side entrance and into waiting vehicles. The scene was chaotic, with smoke thickening and the fire drawing closer. Yet Reeves and Baron remained composed, their leadership inspiring others to act quickly and efficiently. The turning point. By the time the last evacuee was safely transported, the fire had reached the edge of the neighborhood. Firefighters launched a desperate counterattack, using every resource available to push back the flames. Meanwhile, Reeves and Baron returned to the command center, exhausted but relieved. Their efforts had not gone unnoticed. Reporters swarmed them, eager to capture the story of how a Hollywood actor and a young public figure had joined forces to save lives. "Why did you do it?" one journalist asked Reeves. "Because it's the right thing to do," he replied simply. "And you, Baron?" The young Trump hesitated for a moment before answering. "'Cause everyone deserves a chance to be saved. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. When people are in need, we have to step up." A legacy of hope. As the fire began to subside in the following days, stories of heroism and resilience emerged. Keanu Reeves and Baron Trump's actions became a symbol of unity, proving that in times of crisis, compassion and courage could bridge even the widest divides. Reeves, true to his nature, declined any formal recognition for his efforts. Instead, he focused on raising funds for rebuilding efforts, partnering with local organizations to help those who had lost everything. Baron, inspired by the experience, launched an initiative to support first responders and promote disaster preparedness in communities across the country. The Los Angeles fire had left a scar on the city, but it had also brought out the best in people. For Reeves and Barnes, it was a reminder of the power of empathy and the impact of taking action. No matter